to lesson 138, and we're going to be looking at solving equations. We're on pages 249 to 248, and we need to look at some axioms and learn them before we get into the lesson. But let's look at what an equation is first. An equation is a mathematical sentence that uses the equal symbol to show that two expressions are equal. An algebraic equation contains an unknown number that is usually represented by a letter of the alphabet. And here we have an equation. N plus 7 is equal to 3 times 8. All right, and so notice we have this equal sign. So that means N plus 7 is equal to, or the same as, 3 times 8. All right. So in algebraic equation, a missing value is represented by a letter of the alphabet. So N could be A, could be B, could be C, could be Y. Right now, in this instance, we have this number represented by N. Okay, so some axioms. Axiom means truth. Okay, so if we think about axiom, this means truth. Okay, now the first truth or axiom we're going to look at: the same number may be added to both sides of an equation without changing the equality. So you could add an amount to both sides and it would not change it. Number two, the same number may be subtracted from both sides of an equation without changing the equality. Three, both sides of the equation may be multiplied by the same number without changing the equality. And 4, both sides of an equation may be divided by the same number except 0 without changing the equality. Notice we have both in all 4 axioms, because what you do to one side of an equation, you must do to the opposite side. Okay? So let's look at some examples. This equation here, we have N plus 7 is equal to 3 times 8. So if we were to solve this, we ask ourselves first, what side can we solve? What can we solve? Well, we can solve 3 times 8, and we're going to get 24. So that means that N plus 7, so a number plus 7 is equal to 24. Now, if we try to figure out what N is, we can use axiom number 2, which is a number can be subtracted from both sides and remain the same, are equal to each other. So we're going to subtract 7 from both sides. So now 7 minus 7 is 0. So N equals to 24 minus 7, which is going to be 17. Now, what we're going to do in this next step is we're going to substitute. So that means we need to substitute what N equals for N in order to solve, to check our solving, okay? So if we were to write 17 plus 7 is equal to 3 times 8, and we're going to get 24 is equal to 24, and we checked. Okay? Now, as long as you do the same thing to both sides, the equation remains balanced. So here we have an example of another equation. We have 5x plus 1 is equal to 3x plus 5, and notice they subtracted 3 from both sides because they wanted to get 5 by itself here. And so that means now you have 5x plus 1 is equal to 5 because they subtracted these 3 x's out. And then we can solve from there by subtracting 1 from both sides, and we're going to get 5, I'm sorry, it should not be 5x. It should be 2x. I apologize. 2x plus 1 is equal to 5. And we subtract 1 from both sides. And we're going to get 2x is equal to 4. Now, we can divide axiom number 4. Both sides of an equation may be divided by the same number, except 0, without changing the equality. So we can divide by 2. We always want to use the number that's next to our variable. Okay? And so now we have, cross that out, you get x is equal to 2. And we can use substitution to solve. So we have 5 times 2 plus 1 is equal to 3 times 2 plus 5. Okay, so we're going to get 10 plus 1 is equal to 6 plus 5, and we're going to get 11 is equal to 11, and we checked it. All right, so the key word today is substitution, so make sure you leave that in a private comment with me in this assignment. Now, another example. So we have n plus 6 is equal to 4 times 3. All right, again, we're going to ask, what can I solve? What can I solve first? And we notice that we can solve 4 times 3 and get 12. So we have n plus 6 is equal to 12. Now, we need to say, okay, whatever the number plus 6 is equal to 12, that's what we have. So what plus 6 equals 12 is what we're trying to figure out. Now we can do that by subtracting, which is axiom 2, all right? The same number may be subtracted from both sides of an equation without changing the equality. And I need to subtract a 6. So n, I subtract 6, you get 0, right? So n is equal to 6. And I substitute, and I'm going to substitute that in. So I have 6 in place of my n, and I have 6 plus 6 is equal to 4 times 3. And I'm going to get 12 is equal to 12. And there you go. All right, another type of example. So remember, the fraction bar means division. So we're going to ask again, what can I solve? And we can solve here. So that's my first question. All right, so go ahead and solve after that. And you're going to get 9. So now we have x plus 5 is equal to 9. Now what we want to do is get the letter by itself. So we call that isolating. Isolating the variable. All right, we want to isolate the variable, and we're going to do that by, we're presented with subtraction, so we want to do the opposite, which is axiom 1, the same number may be added to both sides of an equation without changing the equality. So we're going to add 5 to both sides, and we're going to get x is equal to 14. And then we substitute. And we're going to substitute 14 for x, and we get 14 minus 5 is equal to 18 over 2. Notice I'm always copying this down first, and then I get 9 is equal to 9. And there you go. Sorry my writing is so bad on the iPad. Now let's do another example. So we are going to ask ourselves, what can I solve? And I can solve 11 minus 5, and I am going to get 6. So y divided by 3 is equal to 6. So a number divided by 3 is equal to 6. Well, I am presented with division, so I want to do axiom 3. Both sides of an equation may be multiplied by the same number without changing the equality. And I want to isolate this variable of y to get it by itself. So I'm presented with division, so I'm going to need to multiply, and I need to multiply by my 3. So put 3 over 1, and what I do to one side, I'm going to do the opposite side. So I'm going to multiply 6 by 3. So if I cancel out 3, I get y over 1, or y divided by 1, which is going to be y. All right, and I get 6 times 3 is 18, so y equals 18. I'm going to substitute. So I get 18 over 3, or divided by 3, is equal to 11 minus 5. and 18 divided by 3 is 6, and 11 minus 5 is 6, and there you go. All right, we'll do one more example, and then we'll end the lesson here. So we are going to ask ourselves again, what can I solve? And I can solve 8 plus 8, so I'm going to get 16, and that means 4 times t equals 16. I need to isolate the variable, and I am presented with multiplication, so I need to follow axiom 4. Both sides of an equation may be divided by the same number, except 0 without changing the equality. So I would divide, to isolate the variable, and divide by my 4 from both sides. Cross that out because they cancel out, and I just get t is equal to 16 divided by 4, which is going to be t is equal to 4. Now I'm going to substitute my t in, and so I get 4 times 4 is equal to 8 plus 8, so I get 16 is equal to 16, and it is checked. All right, for homework, you're going to do lesson 138 on page 383. After you complete exercises 1 through 5, all on page 240 or 250. Okay? So go ahead and do those things, and we will see you in the next lesson.